All right, it's Thursday, March 30th. This is an end of the day SPY recap, and today we end up with another two up, slightly red looking bar, kind of a small bar. It almost has a momentum hammer kind of look to it. When you get a hammer bar in an uptrend, that usually is momentum to continue higher. In a second, we'll get to well, we can do it now. The bigger picture of really what's still unfolding. We've talked about how ever since here on Tuesday, this little reversal that it couldn't move lower to its target. We were consolidating in this congestion area, and this was going to be potentially a big breakout. So even though today it was a bit of a pause day, although it still kind of worked its way back to up to the highs, overall on the weekly chart, you could see here we're moving up as we've discussed. When you saw this big red bar, we broadened to the downside. And after these two bars couldn't follow through back down, it looks like we're kind of getting a compound broadening action back up to that high again. And what's really developing now, and we've been monitoring this all month, is the monthly chart turned green a few days ago. We've been slowly heading up. It looks like with 1 day to go in the month, we're going to close with a hammer bar. That should follow through higher. That should target up here. And the monthly chart, is looking like the odds on to go higher into April towards our next targets, either here and maybe even higher. So that's what's kind of unfolding to the upside. Now the question is, in terms of today's activity, discussed how the second day and here we gapped up from this day. Here we gapped all the way up from this day. So what really happened is it's hard to get too excited about the momentum to the upside given those gaps. I discussed in the pre-market video how you're kind of looking for broad, shaking out liquidity or filling in some imbalance areas on the way down is kind of the better signals on these kind of days. And really what happened today, if you just want to look at it in just one broad scope, we kind of had two pushes down, one, two to kind of the close of yesterday. I often talk about how when you have a gap up, you have this close of yesterday yellow line. That could be an area where you meet some support and you move up. So we kind of filled in the gap and then came up for the rest of the day. Was it easy to trade? Not necessarily. The only thing you might have done here, well, first the opening bar went nowhere. Second bar was inside. Then we had one little quick push up and boom, we immediately fell. So now you're monitoring for the upside. If you wanted to call this, oh, and by the way, this first little move up here, why that really wasn't a trade to take on an inside bar. If you look at the 5-minute chart here, 1, 2, this is the first 15-minute bar, these three, then the 1, 2, then you were kind of inside on these three bars. This very next bar, the first 5 minutes, it just went immediately up, took out those stops, and then boom, within a couple of minutes, you're already starting red. And then by the end of that bar, you have a big red bar, 15-minute bar to the downside. So this really was, you're watching it closely there to see if you kind of break out. You don't do it. Anyway, if you wanted to call this a red to green move on bar number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and buy in here, you could have tried that, looking for that high to be taken out. You paused in here, you didn't do it. Then you kind of went inside. Then you saw it kind of go up. And anytime you have an inside bar, I'm always looking for failure. Same thing with this bar. So on this bar here, it looks like inside, you tried up and then you came back down and you failed. So somewhere in here, you had to just break even and say, if we don't get above these highs of the day, then I'm not really excited to get long, at least on a momentum play early in the session. If anything, I was not excited about long at all, and I looked for some shorts and I ended up kind of going short, and I shot a video Coinbase up here near the open in this area on the failure, and it ended up having a nice move down, all day long. So, I was kind of not really aggressive on the buy side. And like I said, the only trade, and I'm not saying it was easy, but I kind of discussed how a lot of times you'll fill in this gap to the downside before it resumes higher. And it was 1, 2 pushes down into this gap area in here, and then it eventually turned green, and that's why it went up for the rest of the day. But it's not necessarily an easy day to trade on the indexes at all. Sometimes you just have to sit out, is my opinion. And if you took a small loss here, maybe, and that's all you're looking for, maybe you just took a small loss on the day and that was it, and you move ahead towards the next days when things become more clear and, in terms of, and more obvious, I guess, in terms of when momentum might kick into the upside. And you could have played the downside here, I guess, but to fill in the gap, but you're not really necessarily looking for that when you're above the midpoint of the prior day. So hard to trade gaps, but in this case, the bigger picture is we'll wait for better signals to develop here on the daily chart. Bigger picture is, as this week comes to an end, it probably will close pretty strong green, which should lead to a little higher. We might get 4 compound bars to take out that high. And what's really unfolding, I think, is this monthly chart, which kind of, has an next target here and then another target up here. So into April, there should be some long trades, and we might have to just wait for better setups here in the daily chart where things really align a little better for immediate follow through, and we don't get these gaps type of thing. But anyway, that's what today is all about, and we'll just have to see how the month ends tomorrow.